My ex dates my cousin out of jealousy over how much our daughter likes my girlfriend. But I file for full custody after a dinner where he tries to make her call him dad. My ex-wife Lauren, 32, and I, 33, got married when we were 24. Everything went well the first year. We both found jobs. We rented a small apartment near downtown and spent weekends at farmers markets. But then Lauren got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but neither of us was upset about the news. In fact, we were happy. Our daughter was born when we were 26. After she arrived, everything changed. Lauren quit her job to stay home with the baby because we couldn't rely on anyone to help with childcare. I started working more hours to cover the difference. By the time I got home each night, we were both so exhausted there was no energy left for anything else. That's how relationships wear down. When instead of talking about interesting things, all you talk about is baby appointments and how much of a pain your boss is. The fighting started about 6 months after our daughter was born. Lauren said I wasn't helping enough, which wasn't true because on weekends, when I was home, I handled the majority of things with our daughter. During the week, it was hard when I had to work 10 to 12 hours. She said I didn't understand how hard it was to be alone with a baby all day. Things got ugly quickly. We tried to make it work for our daughter's sake, but when she turned 2, we both knew the best option was to end it. The divorce was surprisingly smooth, because even though we were fed up with each other, we agreed divorce was the right path for everyone, including our daughter. We agreed on joint custody with alternating weeks. Our daughter would spend 1 week with me and 1 with Lauren. We did the handoff on Sundays at 6 p.m. For the next 4 years, that arrangement worked perfectly. Lauren got a job, plus some family help and babysitters to look after our daughter. I got promoted and also got help that hadn't been available during our marriage for reasons that don't matter now. But with my new salary and Lauren's job, it became easier to afford help, plus the help that was now available. Also, our daughter was at each home only about 2 weeks per month, so we only had to figure out childcare for those weeks when we were working. My hours also dropped significantly since I didn't need as much money. We were cordial during drop-offs and when we had to coordinate anything related to our daughter over the phone. We both dated now and then, but nothing serious. We had an unspoken rule not to introduce anyone to our daughter unless it was something serious. Our daughter was doing well, never complained about the arrangement. She had her own room at both homes, her own toys, her own routines. It seemed like we had achieved the impossible, a divorce that didn't destroy our daughter. A year ago, I met my girlfriend, 29. I really liked her, but more importantly, she seemed okay with the idea that I had a daughter. After 6 months of dating, I realized this was different from anything I had experienced since the divorce. I asked Lauren if it would be okay for her to meet our daughter, and she said she had no problem with it. I wanted to make everything as smooth as possible for everyone. My girlfriend met my daughter for the first time, and they hit it off right away, maybe too well. From then on, she started being present in my daughter's life. She would come over and stay a few nights. If it was my week with my daughter, they would do things together, like watch movies, or even help with homework. Lauren actually liked spending time with my daughter and me, and everything went pretty well, until the problems with my ex began. One day, she asked to meet in person to talk about something important regarding our daughter. We usually handled things by phone or during the handoffs, so it felt serious. She wanted to meet my girlfriend before things went further. I didn't see how this was necessary, but Lauren insisted it was for our daughter's safety and well-being. I arranged a lunch so the two could meet, something my girlfriend agreed to because she wanted things to go smoothly. The lunch happened 2 weeks later. My girlfriend, Lauren, and I sat at a corner table to talk calmly, and it turned out that was a good idea. The conversation was stiff. Lauren asked my girlfriend about her job, where she grew up, what her family was like. It felt less like lunch and more like a job interview for a high-security position. My girlfriend answered everything politely, though I found it a bit rude. In the end, Lauren said my girlfriend seemed fine, but hoped I'd be careful with the example I was setting for our daughter. When I asked what she meant, she just said she wanted the best for our daughter. In the following weeks, I noticed Lauren's messages became shorter and colder. She started asking to change custody at the last minute, something she had never done before. 3 weeks ago, Lauren showed up at my house on a Friday afternoon to talk. It was her week, so I was alone, and our daughter was with one of her relatives. I took Lauren into the kitchen. She looked nervous but also defiant, like she was preparing for a fight. She needed to tell me something before I heard it elsewhere. She was dating someone, and it wasn't casual, it was serious. I said that was fine since I had always encouraged her to date when she felt ready. But when she said serious, she meant serious problems, because it was my cousin. I stared at her. My 28-year-old cousin is the son of my mom's sister. As kids, our families lived in the same neighborhood. I don't have any competitive siblings, but my cousin filled that role throughout our childhood. After the divorce, he started messaging me more. Wanted to grab a beer, catch up, act like we were close. I mostly ignored him because I was busy with work and my daughter. I asked Lauren how long it had been going on, and she said a month. They met at a park, started talking, exchanged numbers, and the rest is history. She said they had real chemistry and she wouldn't apologize for moving on. I told her I didn't care who she dated, but my cousin was a bad choice. And here's where you might think, oh, OP is just jealous. But trust me, my cousin is bad news. She got defensive and said I had no right to comment on her relationships. I said fine, but keep him away from my daughter until I'm comfortable. She said that wasn't fair because I had introduced my girlfriend to our daughter. I pointed out that I had asked for permission first. My relationship was more serious, and it would be confusing for our daughter to suddenly have her mom dating my cousin. She said she didn't care and wanted to do the same. Then she doubled down and said she was taking our daughter to dinner with my cousin that night. I said absolutely not, but she responded that it was her custody week and she would do what she wanted. To me, she was being reckless. To her, I was being controlling. We kept arguing until Lauren turned and left. I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking my phone, hoping Lauren would message saying she changed her mind. Nothing. The next day, Saturday, Lauren brought my daughter to my house at 10 a.m. She wasn't supposed to return her until Sunday afternoon. Apparently, our daughter had been quiet all morning and only spoke to ask to come to my house. Lauren thought maybe she wasn't feeling well. I took my daughter inside, and Lauren left. My daughter went straight to her room without saying a word. I followed her and found her sitting on the bed staring at the floor. I asked if she was okay. She didn't answer for several minutes, then started crying. It took me nearly an hour to get the full story. Dinner had been at a place near Lauren's apartment. My cousin was already waiting. During dinner, he called her sweetie and little one in a way that made her uncomfortable. Then he started joking about being her new dad. He told her she should practice calling him dad instead of using his name. My daughter thought he was joking and laughed, but he kept insisting. Now that he and Lauren were together, he'd be around all the time, and it would be easier if she started calling him dad right away. My daughter told him she already had a dad. My cousin replied, "Sure, but now you have two dads, isn't that cool?" My daughter looked at Lauren for help, but Lauren just kept eating her salad in silence. My cousin got more insistent, saying that if my daughter was going to be difficult, it would complicate things for everyone. He didn't raise his voice or say anything explicitly rude, but the tone made it clear he wasn't joking anymore. My daughter spent the rest of the dinner in silence. When they got back to Lauren's apartment, she wanted to come to my house, but Lauren said that wasn't possible and she had to stay until Sunday. My daughter cried herself to sleep. The next morning, she told Lauren again that she wanted to leave. Lauren gave in and brought her back. After she told me everything, my daughter asked if she had to go back to Lauren's house next week. I called my lawyer first thing Monday. I explained the situation and asked about my options. The option was to file for an emergency custody modification due to emotional distress. It wouldn't be easy, but if I could prove my daughter's well-being was at risk, a judge might temporarily change the agreement. I filed the paperwork that afternoon. Lauren was notified 3 days later. She immediately called, screaming that I was trying to take our daughter over one bad dinner. When I replied that it wasn't about the dinner, but her judgment and allowing my cousin to intimidate our daughter, she hung up on me. 2 days later, I started seeing posts. Lauren had posted that I was jealous of her happiness and that to ruin her moment, now that she was starting a new relationship, I was trying to sabotage the custody agreement. At no point did she mention she was dating my cousin or that she might be the one jealous of my girlfriend. Lauren's family seemed to support her no matter the detail that she was dating my cousin. I don't know if they all knew that detail, but at least her parents did, and they had no problem with it. While I didn't like the idea of my cousin for many reasons, who she dated wasn't my business. But given everything that happened, it was a problem. My own family had mixed reactions. My parents were horrified when I told them what my cousin did. They know him well enough. My mother called her sister and confronted her. It didn't go well because my aunt defended her son and said my daughter was just seeking attention. My mom yelled that she was the second biggest idiot in the family and only lost first place to her son, and not by much. She also ordered her to stay away from her granddaughter, which included her son. My father supported me too. It wasn't his sister's son, but he felt the same as my mom. Here's the issue. My cousin had a rough teenage period with some substance abuse, mostly alcohol, but we can't rule out other things during that time. Now he claims to be sober, and I can believe him, but I wish Lauren had taken things slow instead of rushing into it. In fact, it all feels like too much of a coincidence for this to be a naturally formed relationship. In our arguments, she has said some things that make me think she's jealous of my girlfriend, not because of me, but because she connected well with our daughter. However, my daughter has never called my girlfriend mom, at least not in front of us. It's like Lauren is trying to win some competition, like which parent's partner loves more or something like that. The custody hearing is scheduled for next month. My lawyer says we have a case if my daughter is affected by all of this, but it's not a guaranteed win if she hasn't suffered real trauma. Lauren has also been a good mother overall, and judges don't like taking a child away from her mother unless there's clear evidence of harm. My daughter's testimony will be crucial, but my lawyer is concerned. My girlfriend has been supportive through all this. She's been staying more at her place to give me space. She said she understood if I needed to pause our relationship until this was resolved. And while I thanked her for the gesture, I preferred to have her by my side during this. My daughter has been very attached to me since that dinner and doesn't want to go back to her mom's house. I've tried explaining what the custody agreement means and all that, but I'm not sure she fully understands. The only thing she keeps repeating is that she doesn't want to go back to her mom's or see my cousin again. She knew him from some family events, but she never had to deal with anything like this. In fact, I'm starting to think there's more to this than just pressuring her to call him dad. Edit. I don't think listing everything my cousin did during his addiction period is worth it. His mother knows them well because she lived through them. I'm someone who believes in second chances, but when it comes to my daughter, I'd rather play it safe. That's why I wanted Lauren to wait until things were serious. Because even if it's been years since his rehab, addiction struggles are lifelong. While this may not be directly related, or at least not that I know of, his behavior, based on what my daughter described, doesn't seem all that normal either. Update 1. The custody hearing was yesterday. I need to write it down while it's fresh because I still can't believe what came out in that courtroom. The previous weeks were tough. My daughter stayed with me the whole time because a temporary arrangement had been granted until this was resolved. The judge approved it based on a prior meeting between my daughter and a court worker. Lauren had supervised visits twice a week at a family center in the city. My daughter went, but it didn't go very well because she didn't want to open up to her mother. After those visits, Lauren usually talked on social media about how painful it was for her as a mother to be away from her daughter. She shared a distorted version of what happened during the supervised visits, saying our daughter cried because she didn't want to be separated from her. That wasn't what was happening. Unfortunately, my lawyer advised me not to contradict her in the middle of this. First, because it would be my word against hers, and I wasn't going to record the mother-daughter interaction just to prove a point. I wasn't going to expose my daughter just so a bunch of strangers and dumb acquaintances could see it. And if I only wrote my version, it would be my word against hers. My cousin showed up at my house one night, about 2 weeks before the hearing. I had just put my daughter to bed and was cleaning the kitchen when I heard knocks on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw him. I didn't open the door. He kept knocking and ended up shouting that he knew I was inside and we needed to talk. I called the police. By the time they arrived, he was gone. The officers took my statement and said they would document it. My lawyer used that report in court. He also presented the messages my cousin sent me, including several where he called me pathetic and said I was jealous that Lauren had moved on. There was one where he said he was doing all this because eventually my daughter would realize I was the problem and would want to spend more time with him and Lauren. Lauren's lawyer tried to argue that I was taking things out of context. She presented character witnesses who talked about what a dedicated mother Lauren had been. Her sister testified that Lauren called her every day crying because she missed my daughter. Lauren's mother said I was acting out of spite because she had found happiness. Then a session with a court psychologist was reviewed, one that included a longer meeting with my daughter. The first session had been preliminary. In this one, more details about that dinner came up. For starters, my cousin had been drinking alcohol with Lauren. Yes, the same recovered addict. My daughter obviously didn't explain it that way, but gave details about a bottle shaped like a wine bottle and that both had been drinking. Also, my cousin had been much more aggressive than what my daughter initially told me. She had been afraid to say it, but opened up to the court worker who specializes in these cases. Lastly, they were inappropriate in front of her, mainly my cousin, who was overly affectionate with Lauren, even though she seemed to be trying to tell him no. That's what we were able to gather from what a child said, and it sounded pretty bad. The judge called a recess after the psychologist testified and said he needed time to review additional material. We waited in the hallway for more than an hour. Lauren sat at the other end with her lawyer and family. No one spoke to each other. When we returned to the courtroom, the judge announced his decision. He granted me full custody, but Lauren would have visitation every other weekend from Saturday morning to Sunday evening, on the condition that my cousin could not be present at any of those visits. The judge said my daughter had been clear about her discomfort and fear regarding my cousin, and that Lauren's lack of reaction at the dinner showed poor judgment. He also noted that the lies on social media painted a bad image of her as a mother. Lauren began to cry. Her lawyer requested a stay to appeal, but the judge denied it. He said the order was effective immediately. That night my aunt called to yell at me for what I had done to my cousin and Lauren. According to my aunt, now everyone knew about his relapse, which tells me she already knew, too. My mother wasn't happy with my aunt either, but they had already been on bad terms before this came out. I replied that her son should seek help for his own good, and she hung up on me. A few hours later, my mom called because my aunt had sent a mass email to the extended family accusing me of making up stories about my cousin to win custody. The email claimed my daughter was brainwashed to say those things, and that my cousin was completely sober. My mom replied to everyone in the email thread, but wanted me to know what was going on in the family. The days that followed were quiet. My girlfriend came over most nights and helped with dinner and homework. Last weekend was Lauren's first visitation. I dropped my daughter off at the family center on Saturday. At 9 a.m. Lauren was already there. My daughter walked slowly toward her mother, but didn't hug her. Lauren tried to talk to her, but my daughter just nodded or shook her head. They left together, and I went off to wait out those 24 hours. It's clear I don't like this arrangement, but it's what the judge ordered. That night, my daughter told me Lauren cried a lot during the visit and kept asking her why she had said those things to the judge. Lauren told her she hurt her and made everyone think she was a bad mother. My lawyer already knows about all of this. Yesterday, I received a text from my cousin. He said Lauren had broken up with him and blamed me for ruining their relationship. Lauren had been a wreck since losing joint custody and couldn't handle being in a relationship. I blocked his number after reading it. This morning my lawyer called. Lauren's attorney had contacted him to request a modification to the visitation arrangement. Lauren wants to return to the previous schedule. Her argument is that my daughter has now adjusted and everything has calmed down, so there's no reason for limited visits. We responded with a firm no, that these matters don't get adjusted according to Lauren's mood swings. I also asked my daughter the next morning at breakfast if she wanted to spend more time with her mom. She said she didn't know. I asked if she felt safe at Lauren's house, and she said yes, but only if my cousin wasn't there. I explained that he wouldn't be allowed to be there during the visits, and she asked how I could be sure. When I told her the judge ordered it, she thought for a minute and asked if we could leave everything as it is. If Lauren wants to change the agreement, she'll have to file her own motion and we'll go back to court. For now, everything remains the same. Lauren's social media has been quiet after she deleted her posts. I don't know if she did it because it was the right thing to do or because she wants to look good. In the end, during the one visit she had, she pressured our daughter again not to say things that made her look bad. My lawyer has asked me to wait and see how Lauren behaves in future visits. At this point, the only thing keeping her from losing visitation altogether is how she acts going forward, so it's best to wait. Update 2. Lauren filed a request 3 weeks ago for a hearing to modify custody. The date is set for next month. Her attorney sent a thick packet of materials, including sworn statements from her family, a psychological evaluation she voluntarily underwent, and a statement from a counselor she has been seeing. Basically, they argue that she has done the work to address the concerns from the previous hearing and deserves equal custody. My lawyer reviewed everything and said her case is stronger than he would like. The psychological evaluation shows no red flags. The counselor's statement talks about how Lauren has been processing the situation and learning better boundaries. The statements from her family say she has been a dedicated mother and that the current arrangement is too restrictive. But then something happened that no one expected. 2 weeks ago, my daughter was on her regular visit with Lauren. I dropped her off Saturday morning. As always, everything seemed normal. On Sunday afternoon, when I picked her up, my daughter was quiet again, but not shut down like before. She seemed thoughtful, not scared. We got home, and she went to her room to put away her bag. A few minutes later, she came into the kitchen while I was starting dinner and asked to talk. I sat down with her at the table and waited. My daughter said something had happened at Lauren's house that weekend. Lauren's parents had been there most of Saturday. They brought food and spent the afternoon watching her play in the yard. Everything was fine until my daughter overheard Lauren and her mother talking in the kitchen while she was getting a glass of water. Lauren's mother was telling her to stop being so emotional during visits because it made my daughter uncomfortable. Lauren said she couldn't help it because she missed her and the situation was unbearable. Then Lauren told her mother that she never should have gotten involved with my cousin, that it was a stupid decision made out of spite. Seeing me move on with my girlfriend and seeing how happy my daughter was with her made her want to hurt me back. When she ran into my cousin at that park, she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew it would upset me. My daughter, who heard all of this, didn't understand everything, but she did understand that Lauren had been with my cousin to bother me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and explained what my daughter had overheard. She was fine, but the situation was complicated for a child her age to fully understand. It wasn't the same as things she had witnessed with her own eyes, just something she had heard. But then something else happened. My cousin was admitted into rehab again. That in itself wouldn't be surprising, except for the fact that as part of his program, he agreed to make amends for some things, including sending me a letter apologizing for what he did. The letter included a lot about when we were younger and had our differences, but also about what happened recently. To begin with, Lauren hadn't met him in a park, but in a bar. That's where they had their first date after she contacted him. To be absolutely clear, Lauren knew about his addictions. And while it may not have been her idea to go there, it should have been the first red flag when an addict asks to meet in a place like that. They do serve non-alcoholic drinks in those places, but it's too much temptation for someone who is fighting their own demons. He went on to confess that Lauren had pushed the idea that it would be good for our daughter to call him dad, and that she was okay with them drinking that night to make things more relaxed. He also admitted that they were very affectionate with each other, as my daughter said. Nothing openly explicit, but far too much to be doing in front of a child. Yesterday, my lawyer submitted this handwritten letter from my cousin, which was authenticated by an expert to confirm it was his handwriting, in case he is subpoenaed and tries to deny it. This has resulted in Lauren's visits being suspended until a final decision is made. My daughter seems fine, is doing well in school, and has made a new friend. The hearing next month will determine what happens with custody. My lawyer believes the new information about my cousin will help, but he warns me not to be overconfident. My ex is still presenting a very positive image of herself, rehabilitated, if you will, and that could influence the judge. Everything will depend on how serious the situation is and possibly on whether my cousin agrees to testify and provide more details. I hope his treatment works and that he does the right thing in the end, but right now it feels like a chess game where any move you make can cause problems several moves down the line. Update 3. The hearing was last week. I'm writing this from my living room while my daughter is sleeping upstairs and my girlfriend is in the kitchen making tea. The last few weeks have been a lot, and I need to write it down before I lose details. Lauren's lawyer came prepared. She brought a child psychologist to testify about the importance of the mother-daughter bond and how limited visitation can harm it in the long term. She brought Lauren's counselor to explain the work Lauren has done to process her emotions and improve her judgment. 3 of Lauren's co-workers testified about how responsible and careful she is professionally. Lauren herself testified about how much she missed my daughter and how she had learned from her mistakes. It was effective. I saw the judge taking notes and nodding at times. Then my lawyer presented our side. He called my cousin to testify. My cousin explained everything he had already said, but also expanded on it with more details. He apologized for what he did and explained that this was part of his recovery, making amends for past mistakes. The judge asked him several pointed questions about why he was speaking now and whether he had any hidden motives. He said his only motive was to tell the truth, even if it made him look bad. We also submitted a report from the supervised visitation center. The supervisor documented that during the visits, Lauren displayed inappropriate behavior. If my daughter wasn't very enthusiastic about going with her, Lauren pressured her instead of trying to calm her down and talk things through. Finally, after a lot of suspense, the judge ordered an end to supervised visits and granted me 100% custody. There was a lot of shouting in the courtroom, especially from my ex and her family, while her lawyer tried to speak to the judge. But that was it, and we went home. That was 5 days ago. Yesterday, I received a message from Lauren. It had no filter at all, because she thinks she has nothing left to lose. I don't believe that's true, because if she tries to modify the agreement again, all of this will be evidence of her condition. She called me all kinds of things, but also my parents, my girlfriend, and even my cousin. It will be saved in case we need it in the future. My cousin has been discharged from rehab, and now comes the hardest part. Maintaining sobriety without the support you get in those centers. My aunt is not speaking to my mother at the moment, but I know some things through other relatives. Part of me, even though I like being very far away from my cousin, truly hopes he can overcome this. Addiction is no joke, but as far as I'm concerned, I will keep my distance, especially when it comes to my daughter. The relationship between my girlfriend and my daughter has grown stronger. My daughter now asks my girlfriend's opinion on what to wear to school, how to draw a certain animal, or whether a joke is funny. My girlfriend is not a replacement for Lauren, but she has become an important part of my daughter's life. I'm grateful for that because I know how difficult it is to date someone who has a child. It hasn't affected her directly, but she has been there for me during my darkest moments. Last night, my daughter asked me if I was going to marry my girlfriend. I asked her where that came from. Apparently, a friend at school said that when a dad has a girlfriend for a long time, they usually get married. It completely caught me off guard. I hadn't thought about it, but now I can't stop asking myself the question. I won't do it anytime soon, but I think my daughter has a valid point. Still, I think it's too early to take that step. I don't know if the current arrangement will last or if Lauren will eventually request a modification. I don't know if my cousin will recover or fall back into his old habits. But I do know that this seems to be coming to an end, and I won't have anything to update for a while. Update 4. To give a time frame, the last time I posted here was a little over 3 years ago. That's why I'm bringing a life update, if that's allowed in this sub. I want to talk about what my life has been like, how my daughter is doing, and about my ex and my cousin. My daughter is doing very well, thriving despite still being estranged from her mother. Lauren tried to get some sort of agreement that would allow her to see her, and she partially succeeded, but more on that later. The important thing is that my daughter is okay, and that she hasn't replaced her mother with my now wife, as Lauren and some people always seem to think. I believe their relationship is more like friends at this point. I don't really know how to explain it, but they seem like sisters or best friends. I married her about 6 months ago, after we had been dating for more than 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. I did eventually propose, like I said I was considering in my previous update, but much later. In fact, we talked about it together for a while until we were both comfortable with the idea, and I made it official with a ring and everything. My daughter was the most excited of all. She danced at the wedding with me, my wife, my parents, and anyone who still had legs to keep up with her. That's what playing soccer at school will do to you. My cousin hasn't had any relapses that I'm aware of. I've seen him a couple of times, and he seems fine. He's apologized to me, but he hasn't seen my daughter again. That's my decision. On the 2 occasions I saw him, my daughter was not present. If he has returned to his old habits, I really don't know. He might just be hiding it well. I can't say. I truly hope he hasn't, but it's also not my problem. It's more of a hope because of all the problems that could come from that. As for my ex, she tried to request custody again a year after my last post. She was granted supervised visits at a center, which did not go well at all. My daughter was a bit older and more vocal about her discomfort with her mother. Lauren also didn't make much effort to improve things and would lose her patience easily. Eventually, the visits stopped and she never asked about her daughter again. Up until then, she at least tried to check in maybe once a week. After that, absolutely nothing. The last time I heard from Lauren was when she found out I was getting married. She had a few things to say about me, about the wedding, about my fiancé, and even about the dog we adopted, but I didn't pay much attention. The rest of my life has been good, with little drama, just the way I like it.